And just to drive the point home, the difference between hard skills and soft skills. And if you remember, one of the first things I said, creative thinking, which is a soft skill, is a billion-dollar soft skill. Let me give you an example of exactly where it is a billion-dollar soft skill. So I can't tell you the exact year now, but some 20 plus years ago, Apple Computer was not doing very well. Despite all of the wonderful things that Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs brought into Apple Computer, from the mouse, the cursor, the graphical user interface, and so on and so forth, Apple Computer was doing badly. And the reason it was doing badly, well, let's look at the numbers. They had about 3% market share. Windows and IBM and other manufacturers of using the Windows operating system had 97% of the market. From the point of view of business, that means you've lost. 3% is noise. You're not even a competitor. Why? What happened to Apple? Everybody agreed even then Apple was by far the better platform, but they only had 3% market share. The problem was management at Apple at that time, a man by the name of John Sculley, came over from Pepsi-Cola. He might have been a tremendously good CEO at Pepsi-Cola, but he was extremely ill-suited to run a company like Apple because he simply lacked creative thinking. He was a classic product of Wall Street. Wall Street, to this day, is very much about hard skills. It is not about creative thinking. And John simply could not envision the power of the Apple platform and to make that vision understandable to a large market and bring in the right kinds of innovation. So the board at Apple dismissed John and brought Stephen Jobs back. Well, Stephen Jobs at that point was CEO of a movie company called Pixar. You've all seen Toy Story, I'm assuming. Very successful. He agreed to come back, but without leaving his job at Pixar. And he agreed to work for $1 a year, plus obviously other terms based on success. And Stephen Jobs saved Apple Computer. And he saved Apple Computer in a way that only somebody with the soft skills, with the creative thinking ability, could possibly have saved Apple Computer. If you were thinking like a Wall Street guy, if you were thinking like an accountant, there would not be an Apple Computer today, I promise you that. But Steve Jobs was neither of those two. He was creative, he was also fearless. He had enough money. He didn't have to go to venture capital. He didn't really have to go to anybody. He was in charge, he could do whatever he wanted. So how did Steve Jobs save Apple Computer? Interestingly, by not saving Apple Computer. He put all of his attention and the attention of his engineers not into the computer itself, but into a completely new product that was called the iPod. Purely a consumer product to listen to music. Remember we talked about the Sony Walkman? Well, this is many generations forward into that idea of the Sony Walkman. Nobody but a Stephen Jobs type with creative thinking ability could possibly have succeeded in doing this. Why? Because at the same time, there was file sharing software that was free. The most famous was called Napster. And everybody shared music for free. Not legally, but they simply shared it through file sharing for free. And it was going to take years for the music industry to catch up technology-wise to prevent that from happening. So how in the world could Apple possibly compete with Napster? They were going to sell music for 99 cents a track. Well, Stephen Jobs saw something that nobody else did. That, in fact, the user is by and large honest. And the user has no problem paying 99 cents a track. Just give them the chance. So he invented the iPod, and to go with the iPod, he invented iTunes. Well, Apple Computer, invented. And the rest, as the saying goes, is history. Apple became, and I think still is, the richest company on the planet. Somebody with just hard skills could never have solved that problem for Apple Computer. But Steve Jobs wasn't just anybody. He took a soft skills approach. As I said, the billion-dollar solution is in creative thinking. And that is exactly what Stephen Jobs manifested.